Covering a lot of ground. We'll basically be going through the entire process of how we make websites in about an hour. There's a lot of content, and if you guys can send your questions and direct your questions to the IRC channel that's up on the board here, that'd be really helpful at the end. We'll get some of those and be able to answer those up here. So, my name is Justin Tupin. I'm the CEO and creative director at Data Designer. It's a web strategy, design, and development company based in Denver, Colorado. Focusing, probably not surprisingly, on designing and developing websites for Google. Today we're going to be talking about the workflow that we use to help our clients make meaningful connections with their users. This is not going to be a very technical talk. We're going to be talking all about process and the steps that we take to bring projects from concept in the beginning through to completion. First, I'm going to touch just briefly. Is this better? Great. I'm going to touch briefly on why process matters. Process is incredibly important to what we do. In order to consistently create successful results, it's important to have an effective and repeatable process. Like a lot of other design and development organizations out there, we're not a website factory. We're not creating hundreds of projects any given year. We're not creating even dozens of projects. We're doing something more than 2 to 5 to 10 core projects in a given year. And it's critical that no matter how different these projects are from each other, that each is on a path for success, and we can manage those effectively to be successful. Process helps manage expectations. When you have an effective process and you know what comes next in the process, you know the importance of what comes next in the process, it's easier to communicate both externally to client teams as well as internally with the internal team. And finally, process helps create efficiency. When you have an established process, it's something that you can work on, something you can leverage to generate efficiency. And in our context, it seems particularly important. We're a small team. Our core design and development team is 6 people. It's important that we're able to manage our process to generate efficiency. So for the rest of this session, we're basically going to be talking about the process that we use. And we're not suggesting that this is the process everyone should use. But we do talk a lot about process internally. It's something that we'd like to engage with the community and have and see more discussion about this topic just in general in the community. So first, I'll go ahead and define our process. Our process is iterative and collaborative. Our process has distinct phases. There are 3 distinct phases. There's discovery, which is the research and strategy element of projects. There's design, and when we're talking about design here, we're specifically talking about UI and visual design. There's implementation, and implementation for us encompasses all things development. When we talk about iteration, we're talking about a pretty simple concept, and that is that at every point in the process, we are creating deliverables and presenting deliverables to clients to get their feedback and make incremental improvements toward the final product. There's a quote, and according to Twitter, that showed up in a presentation yesterday as well. There's a quote that I think does a good job of explaining this. Gauss law, some of you may be familiar with this. It's a complex system that works is invariably found to evolve from a simple system that worked. A complex system designed from scratch never works and cannot be made to work. You have to start over, beginning with a working, simple system. And the process that we use recognizes this fact. It recognizes that in order to create something that is full-featured and complex, in order to create something big, we have to start with something small, something less complex. We present that in this sort of collaborative fashion and push that forward, working with our clients. So this, of course, means collaboration. Collaboration is extremely important. We value collaboration. We value collaboration internally as well as externally. We sort of take this, I think, an extra step, and we talk about having an open or distributed approach to project management. And what that means is fairly simple at its core. It's just that we try to give as much access as we can to our clients, to the people that are actually doing the work. And beyond giving access, we try to empower the people that are actually doing the work as much as possible and work with clients to set priorities and even manage timeframes within the greater timeframe for projects. So we encourage and facilitate this very open collaboration between our team and the client teams that we work with. Our project has 3 phases. Discovery, which is sort of the beginning, with strong overlap in design and implementation. And implementation are simultaneous tracks in an integrated process for us. We don't do design first and then implement necessarily. We don't do implementation first and then design necessarily. Those 2 pieces are somewhat freed up from each other. And we'll get into some specifics of how that works a little later in the session. I'm going to be talking about discovery. I'll spend a few minutes going through some of the highlights of how discovery works for us, what some of the deliverables are in discovery. After that, I'm going to get out of the way, and Ken, our art director, is going to talk about design. And after he's talked about design, Scott, a senior developer, with that, is going to talk about implementation. So, discovery is where we find out what clients really want and what clients really need. I mean, invariably, clients aren't just looking for a website. They're looking for something else. And it's not always money, but it always is some return, some organizational goal, delivering on an organizational goal, and making meaningful connections with their users. And discovery is where we help figure that out. There are key objectives and deliverables in the discovery process. And the first, again, is identifying goals, figuring out what's the client's best opportunity? What are they really trying to achieve through this engagement and through developing this thing? And when we identify goals, we create a drafted purpose statement. Once we've identified goals, we define the audience to figure out who we're going to be talking to. And we create an audience description. Audience description and purpose statement, sometimes these things happen after a contract. More typically, these are things that happen in the proposal process. So the things that we're working on when we're creating a proposal for our clients. But there's a little bit of, that varies a little bit depending on the nature of the consulting arrangement that we're in. So with the audience understood, we work on assessing content and figuring out what tools, what resources we have at hand to engage this audience that we've described. We produce a content list, a simple content list that describes that. With a content list in hand, we create a sitemap of structure, the navigation system around that content. And then finally, we identify communication goals for key pages using simple wireframes. Discovery is challenging. Discovery is a lot of conversation.